Hello, I'm Jonathan, and today I'm going to be reviewing the movie The People versus Larry Flynt for Business 140 Legal Business Environment. So, the characters and plot. So, Larry Flynt is the main character, and he becomes a pornographer for Hustler magazine, which is a magazine that he founded. So, it was slow at first, but it eventually gained national attention. And he was later arrested and tried in Cincinnati for obscenity. And it's really important to note that Larry Flynt is a really big believer in the First Amendment. And the First Amendment states the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the right to assemble peacefully, and the right to petition to the government. So it's really important also to note that he challenges the hypocrisy of the government in his court case. And later, after he leaves one of them, he is shot and paralyzed. So some other characters that I want to go over is Jimmy, who is Larry Flynt's younger brother. So he's a co-publisher of Hustler magazine with Larry Flynt, and he also helped run a strip club in Cincinnati with Flynt. And another character is Alan Isaacman. So he's reluctant at first, but becomes Larry Flynt's attorney. And he's a very smart attorney and also believes in the constitutional law, just like Larry Flynt. So another character who's really important is Jerry Falwell. So he's going to be the prosecution in this case. And he accuses Flynt of publishing a fake parody of him losing his virginity to his mother. And in the story, he's a public figure, so this could affect the court case, and claims that Flynt made a very provocative, indecent, and obscene depiction of his reputation. Alright, so are there any torts? So obviously there are torts, and we're gonna go over the torts that was committed by Flynt, allegedly. So one of them is going to be the intentional infliction of emotional distress. So this one I feel like is pretty obvious. The fake parody of Falwell losing his virginity to his mother could be targeted towards Falwell and could have had the likely intention of causing emotional distress. So in the story, it's unknown if there was actual exigence behind this, so the court had a rule in favor of Flynt. So what did he need to prove? He needed to prove that Flynt had this exigence or intention behind the parody with tangible evidence that he wanted to harm him emotionally. So another tort that Flynt could have allegedly committed was defamation. So we have to ask ourselves, was this meant to harm Falwell's reputation? So Falwell is a very known and public figure, so it's very likely that this could have harmed his reputation. So did this affect anything specific in his life? So because of his reputation, did this affect any partnerships or whatnot? So in the end, Flynt won again because obviously it was a parody and it was ruled to be a parody in the end. So what did he need to prove in this case? He needed to prove that Flynt again had this negative intention, and it was in fact libel and malice. So here's the allegation and analysis of legal issues. So the screening in the end of the court case was labeled as a parody, and even in the original screening was labeled as a parody, and it was not meant to be taken seriously. So the screening could have been argued to be outrageous and out of conduct, which could change the outcome of the ruling. So the two torts that I reviewed, defamation and IIED, short for intentional infliction of emotional distress, those are really important. And we have to also ask ourselves if there was an invasion of privacy. So if Falwell felt that there was an invasion of privacy with his mother, that this could have changed the outcome. So in the end, the prosecution did not meet his burden of proof. So Jerry Falwell did not meet the burden of proof. And the defendant, Larry Flynt, did meet his burden of proof with the First Amendment. So a couple arguments. So Falwell has the argument that that the screening was very offensive and it was out of conduct. And he also could have argued that that it was a malicious personal attack, which could have affected his reputation, and that Flint's behavior was very reckless and indecent. So on the other hand, arguments for Flynt. So he could say that it was clearly labeled as a parody, and it was not meant to be taken seriously. And in his court case, he used the First Amendment, which protects him because free speech is legal, and therefore outrageous speech is also legal. And it was purely humorous, and it was not meant to attack anyone, which is another argument he could have made. So what did I think of it? I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it was really thought-provoking. At times, it was provocative, obviously, and indecent, but it was still very intriguing to watch. And it's a really good representation of how the First Amendment is able to protect an individual from punishment. So, again, this is really symbolic of free speech, the movie. And I had some questions like, to what extent is free speech legal? And how do we limit what people can say without breaking any laws? So what would happen today in Hollywood? So after further research, I found out that this is a real event, and I would expect the same outcome because this case has become a precedent, meaning that other court cases could use this as a basis on their decision and ruling. So it's been named as Hustler Magazine versus Falwell, 1988. So how would the prosecution end up winning this trial? So it's just one main thing, and it's pretty obvious. So the prosecution has to prove actual malice and that there was a harmful intention. So is the movie accurate? I thought it absolutely was accurate. It showcased the process of the court and how an individual can still win a case with the law even if it goes against people's morals and stuff. And it challenges the hypocrisies of the government, so things people may disagree on, people can still argue against it. And there's a lot of legal stakes and constitutional questions, so obviously in a court case, this comes up a lot, and this movie accurately represents that. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching.